If you read xenofiction, you're probably familiar with the best-selling series Wings of Fire by Tui Sutherland, and if not, maybe you should pick them up. Although it's a series I don't plan to review on this channel, I enjoy it immensely, and one reason for that is the interesting world building the universe has, particularly in the first 10 books of the series. There are 7 unique dragon tribes, many biomes, landmarks, and historic events. In this video, I want to focus on the tribes of the first 10 books and explore the theories I have on their origins and adaptations. Right here on screen, I have a pretty simple graph called a cladogram. I'm pretty sure we've all seen it at one point or another. On it are the different dragon tribes that I plan to talk about and assign scientific names. You'll see this bad boy pop up from time to time to help me keep track of things as we run along with the video. Reading it left to right, we first have the ancestor of all the dragon species. From what we know about the scorching from the new guide and Flames of Hope, I imagine the ancestor species of all tribes to be a mix of browns, reds, yellows, and greens, varying greatly in saturation but staying limited in hue. These dragons would have mostly all had fire breath, with the lack of it being rare, as well as barbed tails being recessive, since it's another trait dragons are shown to have pre-scorching. Their body type would most likely be very average, similar to the build of a Nightwing. I say this because, as revealed in the guide, dragons were quite solitary before the scorching, so they would be free to travel to different biomes in the absence of tribes and create a fair spread of different genotypes. The dragons initially not being a social species is no surprise. They're apex predators who don't need to rely on others for support and hunting. Why would they be social? Because of this, they might have had a life cycle similar to modern mudwings. Sexually mature adults would only enter each other's territories to bond and breed before separating. Whoever laid the eggs would probably look after them closely until they hatched. After they hatch, I can imagine the parents would take a backseat and let the dragonets grow up mostly on their own with minimal guidance. Dragonets in this case could help each other grow up, stay safe, and catch prey until they were old and large enough to disperse and control their own territory. I'll assign this nameless origin species the scientific name Draco sapiens, basically meaning wise or intelligent dragon. So, we know from the books that the scorching happened only 5,000 years before the beginning of the series. In Darkstalker's novella, only 2,000 years, leaving only 3,000 years for diversification of such an unchallenged species. For reference, it took at least 70,000 years for polar bears to diverge from their grizzly ancestors, and they're also apex predators. Because of this, I'm going to assume that mudwings must have split from Draco sapiens very early after the scorching. Like, I'm talking about 10 years after early. Maybe due to a disagreement with their queen, or a shortage of food in one area. Either way, this group dispersed into what would now be known as the Mud Kingdom, and without any sea wings, they were free to make use of the east coast and islands too. In their new environment, the new tribe gained larger lungs, stronger limbs, giant jaws, and dull, colored scales, all to help adapt to a semi-aquatic lifestyle in order to limit competition with their ancestor tribe. Something that wouldn't change much, though, is their style of reproduction and dragonet raising. The only real changes being the stabilization of large clutch sizes and the prolonged sibling attachment after maturity. Mudwings will be assigned the scientific name Draco sapiens robustus, after their heavy-set nature that sets them apart from the other tribes. I imagine that the ancestor group became more similar to the SkyWings after the Mudwings' departure, keeping their long necks and more slender builds so that they could monopolize an arboreal lifestyle, and stay out of the MudWing tribe's way. Adaptations like less dense bones, larger wings, and a deeper chest would greatly aid them with this. To help them fly higher and not just faster, they might also have developed an increase in omega-3s in their cells, which would aid in increased airflow for the oxygen-dry mountaintops, as well as cold resistance, as it does in lots of species of fish. At this time, they probably started to have a decline in clutch numbers, or eggs laid at a time, so that they could start putting more time investment and less offspring. Later on, by the time of Darkstalker, they would have developed their incredible fire breath, most likely by killing off any dragon that didn't possess it until the trait finally went extinct, just like they do with Animangus dragons in the present. Or Animus, however you would say that. Anyways, I'll give skywings the scientific name Draco sapiens Enimper in order to highlight their superior aerial abilities. Contributing to the unionization of fire-breathing skywings, perhaps a small population used their firelessness to blend into the forest more easily and safely. This population, outcast from the skywings for their lack of fire, would move even further south of the mountains and become the RainWings. In stature, they would keep their long necks and tall frames, but diverge greatly in other areas. Most notably, their scales would become more vibrant. This could be both the pressure on dragonets to better hide in the rainforest from predators, or sexual selection, as flashy colors to indicate good health to potential mates. At some point, these scales gained the ability to shift colors. This ability, found in some reptiles and fish, is called metachrosis, or at least I think that's what it's called. Once again, not the best at pronouncing things, and I refuse to check. It's done by the expansion of pigment cells called chromatophores, which I do know how to say. According to Wikipedia, cephalopods, such as the octopus, have complex chromatophore organs controlled by muscles to achieve this, whereas vertebrates, such as chameleons, generate a similar effect by cell signaling. Such signals can be hormones or neurotransmitters and may be initiated by changes in mood, temperature, stress, or visible changes in the local environment. Since rainwings are more similar to their fellow reptiles than to cephalopods, it's likely that their color-changing ability also functions via cell signaling. Now, the rainwing's last trait is their magical death spit, as it's often referred to in the series. The liquid substance comes out of the rainwing's fangs, similar to that of a spitting cobra. What makes it different from its snake counterpart, though, is that it eats away at any organic matter it comes into contact with. The offensive effects of the spray are immediately apparent on its victims, leaving deep, burn-like gouges in the flesh as it's eaten away. Any real-world examples I can think of that offer an explanation don't really work to such an extreme, so I had to do a little bit of thinking outside the box. Anyways, I went looking for an acid that could explain the properties of magical death spit. Hydrofluoric acid? Wrong kind of burns. Sulfuric acid? Maybe, but that doesn't seem to do enough damage. I was looking for something immediately corrosive, life-threatening, and description matching. Then suddenly, I remembered. I was trying to explain the occurrence of magical death spit in a book about magical dragons. I didn't have to take a purely plausible route. I think that magical death spit is the first, but not last, use of animus magic used to affect the traits of a tribe. It would have started out simple, with elongated fangs used to defend themselves in times when they couldn't depend on camouflage. But, for whatever reason, one of the rainwings, an animus dragon, would enchant not only themselves, but the rest of their tribe to have the ability to spit acid. Why acid in particular, though? They might have been inspired by any of the many species of liquid-spitting insects, like the real-life bombarder beetle, which are found on most continents around the world. Before this instance, animist magic was probably kept quiet by a few dragons who had the power. The dragons who hadn't felt the need to do anything flashy, as mostly antisocial creatures before the scorching, would have had no need for spells that did anything other than maybe provide easy snacks. Now, as a social species though, there's reason to do more with magic for social power. Rainwings, who I've spent most of the video talking about, will be getting the scientific name Dracosapiens spudente, since I think that their acid is their most interesting trait. Sadly, it seems that I'm a bit out of time, so I'll have to continue this video with a part 2. There are still 4 whole tribes I haven't talked about yet, and boy do I have a lot to say. When exactly I'll post part 2 I can't be 100% sure of, but I doubt it'll take very long. Maybe if this video does extra good, I'll even prioritize it over other projects. So if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, or even check out some of the other videos on my channel. As always, other places to find me and my art will be put in the description. Until the next video, goodbye!